I'm back. I'm back. How long has it been? Is my family here? Let me finish the review first. So this whole episode starts with Vision and Wanda are holding the babies. They won't stop crying. They're trying everything in their power to get it to work right. Nothing's working. And then, of course, all of a sudden, here comes Agnes. And she walks in. She's doing her cheerful little thing when she tries to help. And there's a moment when she breaks character. And she looks right at Wanda. And she says, "Is this okay? Am I doing this right for you?" And Vision looks right at her and then at Wanda. And she's like, no, we're fine. Thank you so much for helping. And of course, there's that look that Vision's now given her, because what an odd thing to do. Wanda kind of looks back at Vision and it's just like, "Oh no, we're good. Everything's good. Happy days." It was extremely unpleasant to see in a cool way. After that weirdness happened, then all of a sudden, cue Full House intro. They did the very similar take that her own sisters, Mary-Kate and Ashley, did in the Full House intro. And they even had a little picnic scene when they were all eating and everything up by the park. And it was just fun to see them poke at their sisters. Monica comes up with a plan to try to build this machine that will go in there. And when it changes everything, it'll change that machine and it'll be a good way for them to go through that barrier. While at work, Vision is talking to one of his co-workers. He's curious from what happened earlier in the episode with Wanda. He touches the guy's forehead and it immediately snaps the guy out of the fake reality he was in. And he goes, please stop. It hurts. She's controlling me. And you're like, jeez. And Vision's asking him. And then the guy's just like, the pain. And then Vision immediately touches him again. And the guy goes, hey, yeah, so anyways. It just shows that there's this mind control going on. Vision is now home and he immediately talks to Wanda about what is happening. Vision is just, he's so scared and he knows that Wanda's holding information from him, and it's heartbreaking because you see Paul Bettany's beautiful performance show so much confusion like a baby child, and he looks up at her and he goes, Wanda, please, I'm scared. And Wanda just keeps on holding this coy little attitude like, what are you talking about? And then he just starts getting her all riled up, and eventually the credits come rolling down over the TV like that episode's over, like she is just done with it. And then he takes her aside and we actually see the behind the scenes of what's going on. And he's looking at her. He's like, what's happening? Who am I? What is happening? What have you done, Wanda? And then she's just like, no, shit, stop. And it was really amazing acting from Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany. It was the best part of this whole show. But one little thing happens. We hear the doorbell ring. All of a sudden there's a knock at the door, and there he is, Pietro, Wanda's brother. But not the one that she knows. The one that we know in the X-Men universe. I give the first episode a 9 out of a 10. This was my favorite episode so far. It was able to introduce a little bit of the old and a little bit of the new, and you got that sweet bounce in the middle where you now understood what they were going for with the slow episodes in the first place. Everything now is feeling way better, and I like where they are going with this. Episode 6, the all-new Halloween Spooktacular. Wanda thought that Vision was going to go trick-or-treating with the kids, and Vision's like, no, that's okay. I'm going to go do the neighborhood watch. And she's like, I don't remember talking to you about that. And he goes, yeah, but I'm going to go do it anyways. Pretty much just doing his own thing because he wants to find out what's going on. And she doesn't like it, but she's allowing it because she loves him. So it's good to see that tension with the two of them. Pietro's going to go trick-or-treating with the two kids and Wanda instead. So it allows Vision to take off. But Wanda's not liking what's going on, but she's accepting it. Monica, Darcy, and Jimmy Woo get kicked off of the sword unit because they disagreed with how he was going about things. And they did not like that he sabotaged the drones by putting weapons on the drones. Wanda tells the kids and fake Pietro to not go to Ellis Avenue. So guess where we see the Vision? He's walking around there and he sees the people are kind of in glitch mode. They keep on going back and forth, and it gets a close-up of this one lady, and you see she has a tear running down her eye, almost like, help me, I'm a slave. This was really unsettling, and it made me despise what Wanda was doing. Wanda's the villain. Monica is able to get back in, but when she gets in, her body resists, and you see her just running through it, and all of a sudden it goes into the shades of all the former versions of her, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and it shows all these versions of her, and then all of a sudden her eyes turn blue. And Darcy was saying every time someone goes through this thing, it changes their DNA, it changes their molecules. It changed Monica. And from what I know from the comics, her actual hero name that you will find out eventually is Spectrum. At the town square, Wanda's hanging out with Pedro, and the kids are being silly. They're running around taking everyone's candy and silly string, and they're being rascals. She's talking to Pedro, and then she looks over and she sees bullet holes in him, and he's dead. The same thing she saw with Vision. Vision finds the edge. He starts going through it. He gets through it, but then he starts dying. His body starts decomposing. Sword comes and they see this happen. They see him dying. And Billy, the son of Vision and Wanda, has the same kind of powers that Wanda has. And he tells his mom, "Mom, I feel Dad. He's hurt. And then immediately Wanda senses for him and then sees the hole in the helix, runs through it and grabs him, brings him back in the fake world. So she goes and finds Vision and grabs him and brings him back in. This episode was really intense. Seeing Vision trying to find the answers, even though Wanda told him to stop looking, and the superhero he is, he wants to help. And then when you see him dying, it told us that he can't leave this world. He has to stay in it. I give this episode a 9 out of a 10. This episode starts out with Wanda being depressed. Everything in her head is starting to give her panic attacks, and there's glitches everywhere. The kids call her in and say, "Mom, something's wrong with the video game controller." And they go in there and you see it's just going from like Atari setup back to normal PS4 kind of setup. And you see everything else is going from the 50s all the way up and down. She's having a mental breakdown. So while she's depressed and she's not knowing where Vision's at, and the kids are even asking, "Where's Dad?" And she says, "Oh, he's just doing his thing." And she's talking to us too, like they do in the office. You're starting to see everything unfold for her. We're starting to see as an audience what she is feeling. Vision wakes up in a circus. Last episode, she spread her hex bubble even wider, and it got a lot of the Sword members and turned them all into clowns. They thought Vision was supposed to be one too. And Vision actually sees Darcy, and then he has to touch Darcy on the forehead and remind her who she really is. And then she wakes up from this weird little nightmare. So she is normal now, and they are both trying to get out, trying to find their way back to Wanda. And every once in a while, they do that little thing that they do in Office, where they start sitting there talking to the camera, talking to us. There's a moment where Vision just looks at us, he goes, "Wait, why am I talking to you? I need to go get Wanda." And then he just flies off. Darcy's like, oh, okay, well, I'll meet you there. Wanda's having all these mental breakdowns, and Agnes comes and says, "Hey, let me take care of your kids for you. I see that you're having some tough times." So finally, after a while, Wanda decides, I need to go get my kids. So she goes to Agnes's house. She starts talking to Agnes, and after a while, I says, "Hey, by the way, where are my kids at?" Agnes goes, "Oh, I think they're still playing in the basement. They love it down there." Okay, so let me go get them. You can kind of tell what's about to happen. Wanda starts going down the basement, and then she hears the kids, and she looks around, and then all of a sudden the room changes, and Agnes walks in, and she goes, "Oh, you didn't think you were the only magic wielder? And by the way, my name is Agatha Harkness." And then a theme song comes on. At the end of this episode, Monica is looking for Wanda, and all of a sudden, we see Pietro again, and he says, "Snooper's going to snoop." So I wasn't surprised at all that Agatha was kind of the villain. So it goes back to 1693 during the Salem witch trials. Agatha is on the stake, and there's a bunch of her coven circling around her, and they're pretty much pissed off that she started learning magic that she was not supposed to be touching. She's obviously like a natural and the best of the witches, and they all try to kill her, suck the life or the witch essence or whatever kind of essence out of her, and she was able to reverse it and do it to all of them, including her mother. I thought this whole scene was really cool. It's just, as I've mentioned many times before in other podcasts and reviews, I want to see the slow descend of a witch. I've always found that to be fascinating. I want to see how the witch in Hansel and Gretel became so putrid. I want to see the seasons and hours of showing the nastiness. So I felt like even though it was a cool scene, it wasn't as dark as I wanted it to be. And I know it's Disney, but there's some things that I just needed to be that way. If I would have saw Game of Thrones meets witches, I would have been happy. So it goes back to having Wanda in the basement in Agatha Harkness, and you see there's relics around. Wanda wants to use hexes on her, but she can't. This episode pretty much shows a recap of Wanda's life and what she went through before all these events happened. We also find out that she loves sitcoms. And the reason why she loves sitcoms is because her family would always sit around and watch them together. And even when the war was going on over there, their dad would make them feel comfortable and have them watching old sitcoms to feel at peace. And as they're watching one of her favorite shows, a bomb goes off. It kills her mom and dad. And her and her brother are still alive, and they're still watching TV, which is something that she did. She allowed, with her powers, to be able to have like a probability charm, which pretty much allows her to be lucky. They're watching the TV, and their house is destroyed, and another bomb comes, and it says Stark Industries on it. So that probably shows why she was so pissed off at Tony Stark in Age of Ultron. One thing that this tells us too was Agatha, or they have a little theme song to show that she was the villain the whole time. But what you find out is she hasn't really done anything. She found out that Wanda was using all these powers, and she wanted to find out how it was possible because she loves the power herself. She goes into this world and finds out that Wanda's doing it, and she can't even help that she's doing it. So she pretty much wants to know Wanda's secret so she can become more powerful. Then she came inside this little world that the villain Wanda already put out, just mixed a couple things up. Now, one thing that she did do that was obviously pretty evil was she did kill Sparky. In the comics, she's actually the person who guides Wanda and teaches her how to become a successful witch. There's a beautiful scene that happens here between Vision and Wanda, and it's the one that shows after her brother would have been killed in Age of Ultron, and he's talking to her. And it's this really beautiful moment between them when he tells her through his wisdom, grief is love persevering. Vision comforting Wanda when nothing else could. The next recap shows Wanda going to visit Sword. She walks in there like she owns the place. Director Haywood finally tells her, "Hey, what are you doing here?" And she goes, "I'm here to take my husband." Well, it's not that simple. He's worth billions and billions of dollars. Because I don't care. I want him. And then he kind of like points over at the window, and then she goes and looks, and she sees Vision's circuits and everything's all over the place, and they're taking it for parts. So she goes down there, and she tries to use her powers to feel him, and she starts tearing up, and I can't feel him. I can't feel him. It's really sad. So then she leaves. Now this is whenever it goes back to her going to Westview. This is when it shows everything. She goes to this abandoned place that has an empty lot within this town, and then she just loses it. She throws her hands up in the air and she starts creating this whole place. A big old bubble around everything, turns everything into 50s. You start seeing her actually creating Vision, all through ways that she has no idea how she did that. So she created this whole thing on accident, out of grief. And that is why Agatha came and saw her, because she was curious in how someone could make a power this amazing. And all she finds out was, you didn't mean to do this. So after she creates all these things, see Vision take her by the hand and he says, "Wanda, welcome home." And it does a full circle to when we first started watching it. Agatha, she's pissed off because she can't figure out what to do with Wanda. And she says, "You don't even deserve this magic. That is chaos magic. And you are the Scarlet Witch." And then it ends. But then after it ends, then it shows a sword facility where you see a new Vision. A white Vision. I give this episode a 9 out of a 10. Episode 9, the series finale. Agatha has Wanda's kids. Wanda decides to fight. Here comes White Vision being sent by Sword to go ahead and kill Wanda. So he flies in, he sees her, and she sees him, and she's like, "Vision?" He grabs her head and he starts squeezing it like he's going to break it. And you find that is his goal, to kill her. And then our Vision flies in and saves Wanda. The two Visions are fighting, and Agatha and Wanda are fighting. They're throwing their powers at each other. And it was a lot of fun to see the two Visions have a philosophical argument. Finally, when our Vision, "Let me give you my memories." And then he puts his hand, he starts putting his hand close, and then the White Vision, he kind of turns away. He goes, and he kind of puts back like you're about to touch a rabbit animal, and then he just and he does it again, and the White Vision gets all this information, and then he just kind of ponders it for a moment, and then he realizes, "I am Vision," and then he flies off. So we are probably going to be seeing him very soon. So finally, you see Agatha start taking all of Wanda's powers, like she took her coven back in the 1600s. And you see Wanda dying, but then all of a sudden you see all these runes that she puts on her red helix. And so she tricked Agatha using the same trick that Agatha tricked her with. And as she does this, she starts taking the power from Agatha. You see this awesome crown form on Scarlet Witch's head, and you see this beautiful costume. Agatha then warns Wanda after this all happened. Right before Wanda was about ready to punish Agatha, Agatha warns Wanda that this power is too much for her, and this kind of power needs to be earned. So what Wanda decides to do is actually turn Agatha back into the nosy neighbor as her punishment. Now the ending was sad and bittersweet, but I know it had to happen. Pretty much, Wanda knew that she had to leave this reality. she knew that she was going to have to kill Vision again. Vision and Wanda both say goodnight to their kids, and I now know that the kids are about ready to die, and it's always hard for me to get through that kind of stuff, but here we go. Vision and Wanda go downstairs and they have a beautiful conversation, and he tells her that he loves her, and you start seeing her barrier getting smaller and smaller and getting closer and closer to Vision. And then you see all of the stuff that she had entrapped be freed, and the town turned back into a normal town again. You see Vision die again, and it was hard to see the first time when he died in Infinity War, but seeing him die again this time around when he had so much more character development, it was a lot harder to see. So as everything's back to normal, she starts walking away from this town. Vision's dead. She's by herself again. And then Monica sees her. Monica says to her, "They will never know the sacrifice you made." And I'm thinking, no. You enslaved this whole people. Yeah, it sucked. You had to kill your husband and your two kids that you created in this fake reality, and you had to kill them. I get it. That sucks. But don't act like you had to sacrifice that for them. You enslaved a whole people. You are the villain, Wanda. Now, don't get me wrong. I loved it. I thought that was really cool that you were the villain. But if the narrative in this show is trying to imply that you're not the villain, then that is just wrong. So then she goes to the mountains. She's just sitting on the porch, just hanging out. But then you see another one of her, like what Doctor Strange would do. She was doing the same thing where there was actually two of her, and there was the Dark Scarlet Witch version in the back reading the Book of the Damned, the one that Agatha owned. So it was implying that she was about ready to learn a lot more and become a lot more powerful. There's another part at the very, very end when Monica is visited by a Skrill. I'm guessing what they're about ready to throw is they're about ready to give her her own show. And it's probably going to be called Spectrum because that's her superhero name. I'm guessing she's about ready to go out in space and do the same things that her mom was doing. So I'm excited to see what they're going to do with that because so far they've been doing some very good things. That's supposed to be down the timeline a little bit. We'll be seeing that soon. So my final thoughts about the whole season. I very much enjoyed everything. Whenever I was talking bad about the first two episodes, I'm glad that the third episode, and then especially the fourth episode, made the first two actually make a lot more sense and make the whole story much more cohesive. So I am so glad that that happened. And one thing about the last episode that I found to be a little bit of a hiccup is it didn't necessarily have the ending I was expecting. And it didn't have a bad ending by any means. I just felt like they were setting it up for a lot more. And then ended up being just kind of like okay, well, this happened and now we're going to move on. A lot of people were expecting to see her hook up with Doctor Strange because that's what the rumors we've been hearing. And plus we know that from the comics that they eventually do start learning a lot of things with each other. And we know that she is going to be in Doctor Strange's new show. And I'm really excited to see how they're going to play that off of. And I'm guessing she's probably going to be a lot stronger by then too. But I thought the performances by especially the main two actors were what easily made this show a standout show. Kathryn Hahn also killed it. She was great. I felt like her character could have used a little more work, but it wasn't on her. She did a great job herself. But this show easily goes to Elizabeth Olsen's Scarlet Witch and Paul Bettany's Vision. I give the whole season a 9 out of a 10. It wasn't Agatha all along. It was Wanda. She's the villain still. Now that I'm done, I need to go find my family. You did it. You really did it. You maniacs! You blew it up! Damn you!
Damn you all to hell!